Bungie, no, they're the enemy! You can't be thinking of doing a crossover with Fortnite! Actually, wow, that looks really freaking good. Welcome back to another TDT video. In this series, what we do is we take exotic ideas from you all in the comment section, give them a little bit of art, and we discuss them. Art and artists that are not from a game are in the description down below. Be sure to check them out. There's some really great stuff in there. This time around, I asked my Patreon supporters to give me exotic ideas for Arc exotics because, well, you know, Arc 3.0, and we're just kind of curious if we're going to be able to predict anything correctly, but we'll get to all that. We're going to feature comments from the YouTube comment section as well as our Discord, so, you know, feel free to drop your idea down below. By the way, make sure that you are subscribed and leave a like. You know, we want to keep this series going. That's the way to do it. I'll find some comments from you all to feature in the future episodes. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it here. I'm actually going to go ahead and start off with the comment that came from our Discord related comment here. This one's actually pretty interesting and it plays perfectly into the intro, which is a Fortnite related exotic. Oh boy, I never thought I would be doing this with a straight face, but here we go. The exotic idea is the Cryostasis Fabricator. It's an exotic chess piece that's available on all classes. You know, it's just similar to like the Aeon exotics, right? And you can swap out different mods depending on what you choose. The fabrication of defense builds a powerful stasis box around you. The fabrication of attack builds a long stasis wall with a ramp in front of you. And the fabrication of support builds a fragile stasis tower, giving you the high ground. Now, my first thought of this was that that's really freaking strong, but they actually had a pretty good idea on how to balance this out, which would be that you could greatly reduce the shatter damage of the actual crystals when this is equipped. I think you could go as far as to just completely remove it all together so that these crystals deal literally 0 damage, because, I mean, in Fortnite, the advantage you get out of building stuff is like, that's the whole meta game, right? And we definitely don't want to copy and paste the meta game from Fortnite into Destiny, because Destiny is its own thing. It has its own meta game. It's called shotguns. But you get the idea, right? The idea of being able to basically create little pieces of cover for yourself. I don't think it could be as big as it is in Fortnite, maybe like sized down, like maybe by 25% or so. But the idea is definitely quite interesting, and it works for Stasis, as Stasis is, you know, trying to interact with the world around it and build and create and shatter and all this other stuff, right? So yeah, I think this could work. I think probably the strongest one would be the tower, but it's supposed to be fragile, so it's probably okay. Like, even if it took a bullet, it could shatter. So yeah, I think that could work out. Let's roll into the next exotic idea, which comes from our patrons. By the way, if you are interested in having a better chance of getting your exotic idea featured, just because there's not as many people in there, join our Patreon. Even at the $3 a month tier, you can get access to my DMs, as well as being able to contribute to whenever I collect exotic ideas for videos and specific challenges like this. Like I said, we did do a challenge where I asked people for their exotic ideas for Arc exotics, and I got some pretty good ideas from them. This from Dolan Woodson is the Warlock exotic robes, Trodden's Fury. Arc souls now fire slower, and instead of the regular burst, they fire fast traveling bolts of lightning that do higher damage and have increased accuracy. Final blows with Arc souls grant energy to your abilities with the lowest energy. So this is kind of similar to the Getaway Artist. That was partially my hesitation. This is why this is so low on this list. But it is definitely an idea that's worth exploring, making the Arc Souls themselves, instead of just juicing them up, but making them do something completely different. I think the idea of having like a bolt of lightning that deals the normal Arc Soul damage, but instead can actually chain to nearby targets, is a really good way to go about that. So even though I don't agree exactly with the idea that this was given because of the overlap with the Getaway Artist, I do agree that there's definitely some design space in here. Honestly, a pretty solid idea. And with Ionic Traces and Arc Soul is definitely going to be a more primary, you know, use or feature. Yeah, coming up with something that maybe like jolts nearby targets or something like that, or, you know, Arc Soul damage jolts targets could work for being able to get that stuff back, those Ionic Traces to spawn or whatever it may be. Next idea, however, we have is from Lane McKenzie. This is the Skewer Hands exotic Hunter Gauntlets. Now, this one is a bit big, but let me boil this down. Basically, your melees from a glaive trigger your arc melee from your subclass. So combination blows grants combination blow stacks that benefit glaive melee damage. Hitting somebody with the third hit of the glaive combo disorients them. And they didn't have an idea for the uppercut, but maybe we could do something where when you do the uppercut with a glaive equipped, it'll actually just cost like as if it were a special ammo round, as if you fired the glaive, because the damage is actually pretty close on almost every single glaive. So I think that could really work, as well as this also giving a plus 50 effectiveness to glaives. honestly, I really like this. The call out that he threw out at the bottom here that I think is partially why I'm so attracted to this is that Warlock and Titan both got something that works specifically with Glaive. Now, I think of all of them, this one is definitely the most likely to have some type of representation with Arc 3.0, like maybe one of those Lost Sector exotics or something like that, because of the obvious gap from the hunters for a glaive specific, you know, utility type exotic that they can equip with it. And if I were to say, I would say that glaives are probably the most hunter-esque if we were to pick one, maybe seconded, followed closely by the Titans because of the whole shielding thing, but glaives just feel like a fast, nimble attack type weapon, which is like hunters in a nutshell, right? So I really like this idea, and I wouldn't be surprised if some variant of it actually ends up making it into Destiny 2. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. The next and last exotic idea from our patrons is from Madbro. The exotic idea is called Sunderer. 150 scout with the aesthetic of the Cerberus. Hopefully the art I was able to find here does this justice. Again, just a reminder, go check out the art links in the description. There's some cool stuff in here from all kinds of different corners of the internet. The exotic perk is called Rend. Fires in full auto. Holding the trigger builds up a charge that then fires like a fusion rifle. So essentially it's sort of like how the Devil's Ruin would work, where you could tap the trigger to fire normally, press and hold, and you would charge up a fusion rifle shot. Probably you'd have to wait until it got to that point before it released. Maybe we could do something where it's like a high impact charge time for like a fusion rifle, but deals rapid fire type damage, so it's not overpowered, right? Because we obviously don't want to give somebody a primary ammo fusion rifle, right? So having it balance out in that way could probably work. And then the intrinsic perk is Sunder. Precision kills generate ionic traces. Collecting an ionic trace gives the weapon 15% more damage. If you're taking notes at home, that's the same damage that you would get from a charge of light with high energy fire or from an empowering rift or anything of the sorts. I just like that last bit alone. Like, the idea of having a primary weapon fusion rifle is a little bit dangerous, and I think that's probably never going to see the light of day, but the idea of the ionic traces actually building into the rest of your weapon, granting bonus damage or like more ability energy or generating those ionic traces like it mentions here, is honestly a great idea. Super synergistic, immediately sets you on the path for a build to create. Great idea all around. Absolutely love this one. Definitely the best of the Patreon ideas that I think I've seen. And coming to the featured exotic ideas of this week from the YouTube comment section. First off, these are Hunter exotic boots with the Strider's Flare. A simple idea where all it does is when you're on an arc subclass, it replaces your basic dodge with an acrobatic flip. This is the same flip that you would do while you're in the Arc Strider Super, and it has 2 charges which break projectile tracking. Now, the breaking projectile tracking, I don't think would be necessary for this. I think it would be better, rather would be that it increases your handling of your weapons after coming out, or maybe handling and reload speed after dodging, something like that. Obviously, having 2 charges of a dodge is not the newest invention. We have something like the 6 Coyote, which does the same thing, but the acrobatic flip, which probably could come back on a faster cooldown as well, like actually increase the speed at which these cooldown, because we're not getting the effect of Gambler's Dodge or Marksman's Dodge, could be really, really neat. My biggest question here is how this would end up like affecting the PvE scene, because there's not really any direct benefit, which PvE really likes to see, but the idea is definitely there. I love the idea of building further into the Arc Strider being nimble and fast, which obviously, as we saw with the Arc 3.0 little sneak peek that we got, is the flavor of Arc in a nutshell, is to go fast and eat other things that rhyme with fast. Monetization. But again, all in all, a great idea. Maybe just a little bit of polish. It could even be something interesting where it's sort of like a Mask of Bacchus type effect, but like on a much shorter range, where you actually like dodge and it teleports you like a blink from one spot to another really quickly, allowing you to close gaps really quickly or get out of danger really, really quickly. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, especially the PvE people. And lastly, the featured exotic idea of the week. I put out a challenge last week about an exotic idea that doesn't deal damage, or at least like it's not built around dealing damage. It's built around pushing or pulling targets away. This time around, I'm going to challenge you again with an exotic idea for a guaranteed feature if you can come up with the best one, which builds around the Arc 3.0 stuff that we will see, because these come out every 2 weeks. So again, an Arc 3.0 exotic. hit me with what you can come up with on this video, and we'll see what gets featured. But anyway, this is from Ghost Turtle, Fury of the Storm. Damage block with this blade's shield will stack a Stormcaller buff on the player. I already would say probably change the name on that because that might get a little confusing, but you know, we've already got overloaded terms in Destiny. Anyway, when the player stops blocking, the glaive will release a shockwave of wind, knocking enemies in a range away and consuming the Stormcaller stacks. So basically, the more damage you block, the stronger that push of wind that comes when you drop the block is. If this is strong enough, you can push somebody into a wall. It probably deals like a little bit of damage just so you know you can get credit for it. Maybe you can electrify them or jolt them, something like that, but not something that deals a massive amount of damage, something that's built around pushing people away. It would be cool if this blast was powerful enough to really like know you, any people who are rushing you down with a fusion rifle or a shotgun, allowing you to get your space back, which works perfectly for what the glaives are trying to do in general, which is to keep you right just outside of melee range, and then once they get that first shot off, close the gap and finish it off with the 3-hit combo. Great idea. I love this. I didn't actually see a lot of representation of the featured challenge of the week, so definitely hit me with those because I will be trying to feature more of them as time goes on. Let me know if you have an exotic idea of your own. Like I said, make sure you subscribe and leave a like. It really does help us out a lot, and bless your faces and deuces.